Next on, we have Francesco. Sorry, Francesco, for the delay. Anyhow, as I got it, you're not a big fan of introductions and bios and similar. So I'm guessing you're still on one of the editors in Volume. We could say that. I'm not sure if you're still doing that. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. I don't know. And people who had the pleasure to meet Francesco, they know that, I don't know, he's really great at questioning things and doing it with humor. And while we were chatting to prepare, when I was asking him to join us here, he asked me, is it okay if people end with this lecture with more questions, not as much with answers? I was like, yes, please do that. So I'm as well like very eager to hear and get confused again, maybe. So I won't go any longer. The title of the lecture is Award-Winning Advice to Win at Awards. So let's see how maybe we could do that or not.
Yeah.
The floor is yours. I think Luke enabled you with share screen.
Yes.
Indeed.
Can you hear me?
Amazing.
Oh, yeah, rock and roll.
Yes.
Great. Yes. Yeah. Let's see for the sharing thing. Anyway, yes. When Tamara was asking me if I wanted to, or to reflect really on the topic, I think the topic of real and reality to a certain extent has haunted really every architectural researcher or anybody or any architect that thinks and questions really the brief, I would say, rather than just strictly replying to it with a beautiful thing. So to a certain extent, we thought that it would have been, let's say, let me share the screen, it's easier to talk with an image.
Need any help?
There you go. Does it, can you see?
Yes.
Yeah, rock and roll.
Yeah.
So basically, when I was, it was basically the moment we were thinking of, the moment I started reflecting on this with Tamara. It was the moment basically that my Facebook feed was more or less this. Was these constantly, and then these, and then these, and then these, and again and again and again. So basically, it seemed like everybody had been nominated but me for the award, for this award. So let's say that made me think in the conversation about basically a lecture I had given that was really the start of a much longer curatorial project that would have culminated with the festival, the Dani Architekture in Sarajevo last year, which was announced in March with a fantastic timing, of course. And then I don't remember actually what happened in between, but of course it was cancelled, although having been already shaped, which was dealing very much with this idea of the real and reality, of the dissonance between the two. Just a couple of things before jumping directly into the thing. About me, I don't expect anybody to know anything about me. I mean, there is no need. I'm an editor at Volume, and I think actually I'm from half a generation before most of you. So I don't expect anybody also to know about paper magazines. But anyway, Volume was born 15 years ago, more or less, by three, let's say, great minds of architecture of the time, that with this mission, really, not publishing basically what you would call reality of architecture, so the images just, but really to understand the upstream. So these were you could take a guess, but anyway, I've ruined the guess the forehead type of game. But anyway, so this was really the starting point of this long curatorial project that would have been in full form in Sarajevo. It was really, that's why it was called the award-winning advice to win at awards, and it was very simple. It was just don't enter award competitions, just don't. It's not good for you, and that's basically it. So I don't know if there are no. I mean, that was that was really the lecture, and it was the shortest lecture that had ever happened, because I think this is the message. Then of course there were at the time I was, half of the people were laughing, half of the people were, of course the organizers were crazy when I gave this lecture, because I had flew from the Netherlands to stay on stage 45 seconds. So I had prepared also the notes to the lecture really, but the notes were absolutely, like in this case, were absolutely unnecessary to a certain extent to really understand the message. And anyway, having worked in advertising before, I know more or less where your attention must have gone while I was reading it. And it is most likely on competitions, just don't and not good. But that's not what Bruce Mau, by the way, I think actually rescuing this incomplete manifesto for growth is probably one of the best things you can do during a quarantine. Basically, that's not what he says, because if you remember actually those classes in architecture school where they were decoding architectural theory word by word to understand and interpret it, it was more like this was the important part. Enter awards and not good for you. I never said don't participate in competitions, and Bruce Mau didn't say it either. So to basically explain that, I could explain it a little bit through a project, more or less. I'm not checking for now. I'm telling you, I'm not checking the chat. Otherwise, I'm completely. I already go, like, my attention drifts. I'm basically a cat with a flashlight, so that's why it's not good. But anyway, I could basically take this project, which is without any doubt one of the most iconic projects that has been done in Europe in the last, I would say, 10 years, without any doubt, in Denmark. And I remember that basically it was a true award sweeper. We have the tendency, of course, to project how good we are as architects according to the amount of awards that we are nominated for or whatnot. And my Facebook feed was a hint to that. And in this case, this project had won basically countless awards in every single possible category and whatnot. Best housing, best residential development, really everything. And I remember that project because I was living in Aarhus. And one day, I remember this day, I ended up basically during a snowstorm. This is more or less how I remember it. I arrived there, and curiously, I was greeted by a well-dressed woman who, in her naivete, thought that I had come for the open house. They were just selling apartments, and they thought that these student covered in snow that just walked 3 kilometers and half frozen, of course, was there to buy an apartment that was more than 500,000 euros each. So I just said yes, because I mean, thinking of going back I would have hibernated the other half of myself. But that it was a very interesting experience to understand basically the reality and the real. Because I had the chance to really see from the inside 8 of those apartments. And curiously enough, I mean, I was an architecture student at the time, still in my enthusiastic phase for architecture. Now I'm maybe a little bit more disillusioned, like Eva. And I had the chance to really see from the inside the layouts, all the things that with blogs, we have the tendency of not doing anymore, which is drawing the plans and seeing how things work beyond the image. And I remember that the first apartment, I didn't really pay attention. The second apartment, I was starting finally to regain my speech. But the third apartment was more or less this layout. And I remember I started asking questions to the real estate people that wanted, of course, to sell me shit and didn't understand yet that my only goal was the free candies. And I started basically asking them like questions if they had modified anything of the layout, because there were several things that really made little sense. In this case, for instance, there was a kitchen that was separating 2 bedrooms. And of course I was asking to the person, like, wait a second, have you arranged one of the bedrooms to sell it? Or in the original plan, this is a bedroom and not a studio? I mean, and they were like, no, this is, we have abode religiously to the rules of the designer. Like, oh, do you know who the designer is? And I was like, yeah. So curiously enough, basically, the whole thing had some first year mistakes in it. But really, first year, I mean, Jesus Christ, not even dividing day functions from night functions. Fucking Christ. And so I could understand good, I could understand better, but really best? No, let's be serious. So that made me question a little bit the whole, got me intrigued in the whole arena of awards, really, of these third bodies that were certifying excellence. So I did a little bit of research into one of them, which was at the time, I remember, one of the most, and still is one of the most important ones, which was this World Architecture Festival, which is, I mean, having to organize a festival myself the year after in Sarajevo, what the hell is a festival, really? I mean, a festival is it can be whatever you want. So, and in this case itself, was it a building fair because there were booths of people trying to sell you tiles and I don't know, and materials? Was it a networking event because there were free drinks? I mean, what the fuck was that? I never really understood. But I remember that I met one of the guys of the zine, which is basically this trailblazer of a blog, which I'm sure is part of your feeds as well. And he was like, we were talking about the thing, and he was like, oh, you know, we killed our sponsorship to the World Architecture Festival because now we have our own awards. So basically, the zine, which, if you know, is by far the most, let's say, I would say profit-driven of our daily blogs on architecture. For them, it was very clear that the value proposition in participating was a matter of awards. It wasn't a matter of networking or whatnot. It was like, we are here because the awards bring visibility to us as well. So I started considering it strictly an awards, and it was very funny when I was there. last year, I was also with Dora, who was helping me in this Sarajevo effort. So I started really trying to understand a little bit more how was this award mechanism going. And it was very, let's say, there were 18 rooms with 47 categories of a prize. And you can imagine it's 2 days. It's only 2 days and a half in reality. And if you think that actually 47 categories are a lot, I think they could have been 48, because I remember one of the categories was this. So they had put together religion and shopping, which seems to be absolutely fantastic for me I don't know, was it a lapsus? Was it intentional? Fuck do I know, but anyway. And the whole mechanism is weird. You can expect, you have very important architects pitching for 10 minutes and then receiving a crit by 3 other of their peers live in front of an audience. And sometimes their peers are absolutely bitchy. I mean, they were super and not necessarily sharp, sometimes pitchy just because. So, and it was why you as an architect would undergo the humiliation of the student life. Thank God you're out of it. I mean, nobody wants to be criticized because of fucking, oh, it could have been red instead of blue. And go like, yeah, yes, it could have. And yet they were undergoing, and not only, why would you participate? Especially they were paying to participate, because I understood that actually that whole thing was how it works. Is not like, oh, your building, we studied it, your building is so good that actually it's here. Have this shiny object to prize your excellence in design. But you have to pay €1,000 to enter. And if you are shortlisted, you're invited wherever they go, because it's a festival that every 2 years changes city. You're invited to actually present it, but curiously enough, you have to buy tickets to your presentation. So, and the tickets are also quite expensive. So just doing very quick calculations, you have €1,000 for one. You have you have to buy 2 tickets, which at least is going to hit you with €2,500. Plus on top of that, you have accommodations, you have travels. Really, the question was, is it like, once again, why? And to undergo the humiliation of your peers bitching about your project. And then on top of that, I remember there was one guy, one architect that presented, you can imagine, presented with no slides. So there was this guy just talking, and he was like, oh yeah, you know, I didn't bring slides because my project is not good enough. Fuck do you mean, man? I mean, you paid €5,000, you came all the way from Singapore, and your project is not good enough? OMA didn't even show up. You can imagine that. They just didn't even go on stage. So I was very curious to try to understand who the fuck this circus is for. Because it was a circus, clearly, like it was a level of absurdity that was unprecedented for me, especially in something that I was given from the outside credibility to. And it was really for clients. That's the only guy that will never step into the building. Because the moment you understood that actually it wasn't for the architects that were present there, but it was for the clients, then things started to make more sense. Let's go back to actually the building. So the moment you understand it, not as our part, so the architecture part, but really as the clients behind this, in this case, pension funds and other real estate companies, you can understand a little bit more the presence and what an award is for. in this case was basically the price per square meter. Of course, they don't use euros in Denmark, but there was a very quick research that I had done, seeing how in just in 3 years, in those 3 years that this building was winning prizes, the whole, let's say, the price per square meter went up quite a lot. And the price per square meter of that compared to the price per square meter of the city that I was living in was, I would say, quite higher than the average. If you think it's not much, yes, multiply that for 22,000 square meters. If you think that actually, I mean, the fact that you might be able to ask as a client with an award a little bit more, just because you won a little, just because your architect and the design of your architect was awarded, yeah, you multiply it by 22,000 square meters. And then you understand actually what was the point of an award. And of course, it was literally a pot of gold. And no doubt, if you start seeing the website they were selling apartments in, all the awards were very clearly visible, because of course, when you go and buy an apartment, if you know that actually that apartment is the best residential development, you go like, oh shit, I might find the kitchen not between 2 bedrooms, and instead. So basically, the client's choice in that case was really, okay, should I use 6,000 euros to send my architect to present my project? Or should I buy an ad space, for instance, on This Is a Local Newspapers, that for just one page, just one Sunday, was asking you 12,000 euros. Imagine let's say, in terms of return on investment, which one is better? So, of course, you understand it. And of course, that tells you a lot about this dissonance between real and reality. At the same time, I really loved Eva's mission and especially approach as well. Because I'm not here to say like, oh, awards are bad or something like that. I'm saying simply something quite different. I'm saying that you just want a trip to Lisbon. I mean, or a Zoom call to Lisbon, but that's the next one where it's going to be. So what I'm saying is, just be, rather than saying or crying over it, try to understand how to go from reality to understand the real. I'm using the terms that you're probably very familiar with now. Go from reality, which is the narration over something, go back to the real, understand it, and then take it back to the narration, so that you know how to use for yourself those mechanisms. So really, what I'm saying is, not don't drink. That's not me. And I loved also that this wasn't even Eva's approach. Because I think this is the approach of people that thought about it. I'm saying drink responsibly. Exactly, like especially don't put too much of yourself into it, because it's, the game is rigged, but you can be part of it. I mean, you can try to game it, to play it yourself. And this more or less is the way I played it myself. This is, I simply recreated the social media mask for the shit, And now I'm going to just ask me if you want the social media mask. You can be an award nominee as well. I've done it for several of these awards, so that next December, when they start announcing awards, you can look like absolutely fantastic, like all of your friends on Facebook. I don't think I have much more to say other than, let me just stop sharing.
Yeah,
Thank
maybe
you,
we can make
Francesco.
a filter, like an Instagram filter of the nominee, and
Absolutely, absolutely. No, but that's exactly the point. I mean, and I wanted to say the aspect of awards was just one that architects has the tendency to. I mean, I'm sure not you, because no, but that's true. I see Tamara nodding nervously, but I'm sure not you, because this is a crowd that asks questions about architecture. Really, it's a crowd that has the tendency not to come just with a preconceived idea and some. So this is the only crowd that I come to trust, really. And during the preparation for Sarajevo, we had identified several aspects in order not to get lost in the bullshit of, not to throw away energies, especially in a moment like this, when you know that actually our professional credibility has gone down. Historically has been in decline. We have a hard time articulating our value to the normal person. So to a certain extent, we have to use our energy as well. We cannot get lost in bullshit. And the moment we understand, we do this inquiry into the real, and we understand how to hack it, I think then we might have an edge, at least on our competition for good, because probably we don't have an uncle who is a real estate guy that is going to pass us things to design from the moment we get out of university. So we had identified several aspects. The award was one. The award was just basically the very first one that started the conversation also with the people of Sarajevo. But then there were several others that we have, as architects, the tendency to get lost in, really to spread energies in. So it would have been cool, but unfortunately, something happened. No, fuck it. Enough. But anyway, yes, I mean, I don't know if you have questions or I wanted to say hi to Mauro. Man, we used to study together. Nobody knows this, but probably he doesn't even remember. But very cool. Very cool to see him after 7-8 years. Feel free, huh? Just jump in.
Does anybody have any questions? I mean, first of all, thank you, Francesco, for doing this presentation. I got a bit lost with your last sentences, to be honest.
That's okay. I get lost myself.
Okay, I don't know. Does anybody has, I don't know, some thoughts to share? Comments?
Can I? It's actually more of a question. If you know something about those student competitions, like there is lots of them, and you pay like participation of like 30, 50, 60 euro, and there are all those like registration deadlines, and then this fee is rising, and it's like 100 euro, and the price is like 500 euros or like 1,000 euros, which is, you know, the most bizarre thing. And there are like thousands and thousands of people, like young students, just being like, you know, it's not a big amount of money, and I can pay that. And, you know, there are like maybe 3 prizes on over like 30,000 people. And I don't know, for me, that's the most bizarre thing, like when it comes to those competitions. Like,
absolutely. And what I can tell you was that without any doubt, the understanding the model of student competition was one thing that we were already, let's say, researching, because it is actually a well-functioning business model. As you were saying, let's say you have just with an entry fee with most of them. I mean, of course, what I'm saying now is I'm the king of generalization, but it's hard to put them together in one. But in most of them, let's say, with an entry fee that seems reasonable, and then of course seems fantastic for a Norwegian student, seems far less reasonable for a Macedonian one. We had the tendency, I mean, what clearly we were seeing from an initial research on those was that the student competition was to a certain extent liberating for students, because they could break free from often the constrictions of and constraints of their typical design studio in university. They could really wild out. So that's why often they were coming into this. There was an aspect that was very fascinating in that. At the same time, let's say it was this constant repetitive design exercise of something. It was like a need to put out stuff. And the business model behind it was fascinating, because you could understand how much money also these people were doing simply by seeing how much money the jury sometimes was paid. Because of course you were going to have a jury, and having been in juries for biennials and stuff like that, the only way you can ensure a little bit of, let's say, trying to understand the possibility of recognizing if a project is good is only a matter of how much time do you give the jury to screen every project. I'm telling you because recently I was part of one in which basically they gave me 1 day to evaluate 195 proposals for 150 euros, which unfortunately is absolutely impossible. And the only thing I could do was to set the timer on my phone and to have basically 3 minutes per each. Now, 3 minutes is nothing. 3 minutes is a joke, but it was the only way that I could ensure that I would treat everybody equally. That's horrible, but this is the reality, basically. No, not the reality, sorry. This is the real of how competitions work.
so you did it.
I did it, and it was horrible, and I was basically like, I didn't get up from it took me a day and a half. I didn't get up from that table. I was peeing in a bottle basically, and that was the level of commitment. But it was not the way to evaluate a good proposal. Because, for instance, in that moment, the parameters that I was evaluating everybody were completely different, were much more communicational than understanding what they meant. There was, I remember number 59, I still remember, got 5 points because it made me laugh. And there was a moment that I remember, like, oh, thank you. Like after 60 projects and with 120 more to go, this guy made me laugh. I was like +5, rock and roll. This is not the way to evaluate a good project. And I'm the first one to know. But this is how things are evaluated. So when I'm saying this, how can you tweak it? The next student competition that you participate, just know that since you don't know if the jury will have enough time to evaluate, it has to be like communication is not something that you can forget. So make the guy or the girl laugh because he's going to give you 5 points. And you have to create basically, like, the parameters are different.
Or just don't take part.
Or, yes, indeed, like me and awards, or fucking tweak it. Or, you know, you say that you won, nobody will check. Say that you won. I mean, after all, it's this rat race for what, really? I mean, you're not going to get a job because of a competition. And often these competitions are already, let's say, quite sketchy in the way they're managed. Just because they are private competitions, they're not public. They don't need to put out a report on who said what about this project, like I had to do, for instance, because there was a project for the European Union. So several times it's very easy, or call the jury and say, like, hey, I don't know, just I would say just take away all the importance that you give to these elements and tweak them to your advantage. It's funnier. But yes, indeed, and several other elements that all have, like, several of them have to do with the recognition, of course, of the outside world that you're given. But I think in general, especially like joking about these things is the way. So creating something that is absurd. That's the beauty of Eva's activism. I think it's something that at first glance, you're like, what the fuck? And that is a great way to get people on your side. And I think often, and this is a personal criticism of the world that I'm also part of, often is a resource humor that is not employed. And it's much more employed actually in that region, I think, in the whole Balkan region than for instance in the Netherlands. Often you're trying to look serious by being serious, and that's not the way to do. Anyway, I can blabber for hours, man. You should never give me a microphone.
Maybe we should do it more often.
Anyone else? Questions? Feel free.
Oh, some people shared some, I don't know, texts related to this. Pablo had a comment.
Thousands of, resources spent for only one winning proposal. Now I'm seeing actually the comments. Of course, I mean, there was a fantastic project, I don't know if you remember, there was a fantastic video done by the Spanish office that was called Taller de Casquería. Unfortunately, I was checking it recently and it's not online anymore. That was dealing, for instance, with the most famous competition in this case of the last 10 years and probably ever, which was the Guggenheim in Helsinki. And they were literally like giving a number to the amount of money, resources, and whatever that went into formalizing 1,600 proposals for a project that got shut down by the municipality. So let's say an absolute crazy number of hours of manpower. Of course, it was an approximation, but the amount was absolutely absurd. In that case, that case, of course, was a matter of was a real competition. But open calls, for example, open competitions, be aware of those, because let's say most people in juries that I've also talked to, they give you 3 minutes to convince them. that's not, or at least just spend half a day with a bottle of rakia on the proposal. Fuck it. Don't put too much hopes in those.
Sounds like doing a student project here anyhow. Spend half of the day with the bottle of rakia because you just cannot anymore. That's how
You think this
finish.
is water?
Okay.
Do we really drink rakia that often?
I don't know, do we really try to look that serious?
No. I was just following up on Eva's trend. You can choose your own liquor. That's what I mean.
Yeah, I mean,
No.
I just wanted to comment somehow, like this whole, it's very interesting, like how you presented this approach of demystifying some apparent reality. You know, like all of this system that is just trying to earn some money from competitions or to earn some other advantages. And yeah, it's like very, very on the point of what we are partially, we will be trying to do, like
Yes.
with the whole assembly. And yeah, it's...
Yeah. In that case, for instance, pardon.
Yeah.
No. In that case, for instance, my point would be to know that actually your part, let's say that more and more communication is swallowing everything up, architecture included. So not only, let's say, media, not only, so, and you have to deal with that. So ideally, every time you're starting to deal with a building, in the design, already have that in mind. And the moment you're let's say, you have already an understanding of the client's needs, if you know that, actually you can propose, you can even show that you know what he's looking for or she's looking for, indeed. So that basically you can propose already some sort of communication plan for that building because you're going to need it anyway. And you can say like, oh, look, if you pay me to go to those awards, I get recognition and you can get money. So let's make it part of the communication plan. I remember when this lecture was done in Sarajevo, the nicest thing was like a local professional, like a local architect established, that came to me and was like, oh, thank you very much. You just saved me 1,500 euros because I wanted to participate next year. And instead, and I was like, oh, so you're not going to participate? And I was like, and she said, no, I'm simply going to have my client to pay me to participate, which is what I mean. Like, if you know a little bit the dynamic behind, I mean, rejecting these dynamics is always hard. You're never working in autonomy. Well, hardly ever working in autonomy. But if you know basically the reality, if you know the real, you can create and tweak a little bit the reality to your advantage. That's all.
Thanks. I think we can make a short 5-minute break to
Pablo asked a question.
Huh?
Yeah.
Pablo asked
Yes?
a
I
question.
didn't see the
No. Francesco referred to that. What about thousands of resources spent for only one winning proposal? Yeah, we covered that one.
Yeah. So toilet break, stretch your legs break, and then we return in 5.
Thank you, Francesco. I hope you will stick around, maybe, to join us for discussions later.
Yeah, and
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, really.
I wish more people would turn on their cameras. It's a bit lonely here.
No, it's okay.
Don't be shy. We can like share this screen thingy with you. I mean, you can make it yourself. It's easy. Okay, that's it. Okay, let's have a break, and then we'll introduce Anna and Mark and continue. Thank you again so much. It was really lovely.